What if you could compress 10 years of scaling your journey down into just 2 years? And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how. And I'm not going to do it through hype or theory. Instead, we're going to do it step by step by walking through a case study of how my team and I built a company to over 30 million in revenue in 24 months. We did it in a way that's definitely repeatable, that's definitely possible to learn some principles that you can apply in your business, no matter what it is, whether you're already in a large enterprise and you're looking to scale, or whether you're working in a startup and you really want to build it to the next level. If we haven't met before, my name is Thomas Cornwall. I run Open Equity, where we invest in and build and scale companies towards a successful exit or IPO. If you want to get a custom scaling plan working with our team, below here some links, you can jump on a call and we will put together a plan to help you apply a lot of the stuff we're going to talk through here and certainly save you some of that pain and toil of scaling alone that I know I have faced. So we're going to go through 3 principles. We're going to go through building demand and how to pick the right market and how to pick the right segment. We're then going to talk about teams and systems. If you're going to scale fast, you need the teams and systems to avoid what I would call chaos. You have to turn chaos into order. We'll talk through how we did that. And then we're going to talk through building through acquisitions when you're thinking about sustaining or even scaling beyond this kind of rapid initial phase that we're going to focus on now. So this is really about getting that hyper growth right and then knowing how to sustain it beyond. So as a bit of context, a few years ago, we were building a technology company, and we're building a technology company that we expanded from Europe into the Middle East, so specifically into Saudi Arabia and the wider Gulf, which is where I am sat now. We built the business from pretty much a standing start through to around 30 million within 24 months. And we did that in a way that was profitable, that had good margins. We also delivered on our promises. We delivered a great service to enterprise and government customers, built a great team, and we had a lot of fun along the way. I think there's some lessons that you can apply to your business, whether you're already in an enterprise, in a scale-up, a mid-market company, or even at the startup stage and you're looking to go beyond. So the first thing that we're going to talk about then is building demand. What I have found is business is fairly simple. It's essentially about demand and supply. I know there's lots of noise and hype about all sorts of weird and wonderful tactics, but essentially about finding a market where there's demand, where people want something, and then supplying it. In my experience, a lot of companies, in fact, most companies, spend all their time thinking about supply. And so they think about how they can make a better product or do something or improve things or whatever. From a market perspective, from where the demand is and ultimately where the money is, most of those people don't really care, or they see you as one of many similar kind of things. So it's much better to go into a market, one, where there's a hell of a lot of growth, because when there's a lot of growth, it means there's opportunity, and also ideally where there's not much competition. That's where we found ourselves. Because of the transformation that's going on in both Saudi and the wider Gulf, there was obviously a lot of demand for technology services and technology companies to come and support the transformation from being mainly dependent on the oil industry to more of a diversified and economy that had lots of different industries. And so that was a great opportunity. So we jumped on a plane. I arrived in Riyadh. We had a small group of us that had started to put together what became a leadership team, and then we could go and scale the business around some of the large clients that were working in the region, supporting them with things like app development and software development and things like that. Again, if you take the step away from that market, you might know that wherever you're sat, that's quite a commoditized thing, or there are hundreds of companies that offer that kind of thing. But if you can find a market where there's a lot of demand for something and there aren't that many people doing it, you can then fulfill that. And I would definitely say that's a better way to do it. Pick the right market or pick the right geography rather than trying to compete in a very commodity place. Because the great thing about this is there was loads of demand and there was an undersupply of really good companies. And so we could step in there and we could at least serve some and build a really good business in a way that wasn't too challenging. It was obviously really, really hard work and everything like that. But because the demand was there, it meant that we could then build up the supply side. We could start hiring people and so on beyond. And that's what we did. So we got a few contracts in, we started scaling the team, and that brought me then to the second piece, which is really about team and systems. As I get older and older, and as I play this game more and more, what I realize is an idea can turn to dust or gold depending on the talent that rubs against it. There's a Bill Bernbach quote there. He was one of the great advertising men back in the Mad Men era in the 60s. In my experience, exactly right. We hired some amazing people who took on projects, who were able to build great products and serve customers in such a great way. And also we had other projects where it was delegated to people who perhaps weren't quite suited, and it proved really difficult. The thing for you as someone who is an owner, a CEO, or someone running the thing is, how do you actually move from that chaos that often happens in the scale up phase or the rapid growth phase, and how do you put in place some order? I'd say the first thing you got to do is you got to get a great team around you. So you got to really think about, well, top down, what is it that the market is demanding? What is it that you're ultimately supplying? And then who are those key people that you can put in place? I always think it's great to get in place someone who can become the operator, so you can start to take yourself out of operations. And typically you'll probably still work on the sales and marketing side, particularly even if you're in a large company with some of the larger accounts. But then if you can balance those two out, then that helps. And that's exactly what we did. So we started with a team that really attacked getting sales in and getting the demand going. And then we started to build out the operations. We started building out core capabilities around things like product and design and engineering so that we could build lots of great teams. But when we grew from a handful of people through to around 100, then to through around 150 people in about 12 to 18 months, of course, that starts to break, because as a leader who's particularly telling people, let's do this or let's do that or let's do the other, is not necessarily sustainable. And you can't know everything that's going on when you've got a 100-person team, particularly when the team is being built remotely, as we did. So the thing that we did then is we started to think about actually building playbooks to solve the operational side, because we'd nailed the sales side, we got the demand sorted, and then we had to pass it through to this delivery and the supply side of things. And the question was really how to scale beyond that leadership team into a fully functioning organization. And the way that we did that was standardizing a lot of what we did. So the first thing is we standardized effectively the unit that we were selling. So we were selling product teams. So this was a full team that would work for maybe 12 to 18 months on a particular product or project for a client. And because we'd standardized that, it meant that when a new project came along, rather than it being a bit random or chaotic, or we offered different things to different clients, which is really common in services businesses or consultancies and agencies and things like that, we actually had to standardize what we were selling, even if the topic was very different. So whether it was, an app doing X or an app doing Y or a piece of software doing Z, we knew that on the delivery side, we had the same unit, which was a team. And that then made it easier as we passed from sales to operations, that we could just think, well, we need to go and hire a product manager, a couple of designers, 5 or 10 engineers, QAs, project managers, things like that. This is a really important thing if you're trying to increase the value of your company and also run the business in a more efficient way. And definitely if you're thinking about selling or removing yourself from the business, because if you can have that kind of standard operating procedure or playbook or documented set of how you actually run the business, then you can hand it over to someone else. You can start training people and beyond. And I'm always surprised how many companies I go into where it is complete chaos and nobody has thought, well, why don't we just write down how we do things? Particularly I find whether it's the CEO or the leadership team, they actually do have a way that they want it done, and they'll often tell it, say that very manually and be frustrated when things aren't done in the right way. But actually they never take the time, or they never work with people to document out those playbooks and write those down. So we started then by getting in the right market. The next thing we did was then thinking about our core leadership team. We then thought about the unit that we were selling. So we started to productize the service that we were selling, and then we could scale through that. And we got to a place where we had probably around 12 teams working on different projects that we could then govern overall on the operational side. And if you can do those two things, you can compress a lot of time, and also operationally, it'll be a bit less challenging. Now, the third thing we did is then thinking about buying market share. Now, this is a particularly good idea if you're in a market that's hot and it's growing. Why? Because you can't build everything from scratch. You may want to, and you may like doing it a certain way, but you'll find as you go up into the bigger leagues, that's exactly what we did. What we realized is we were offering a core service around different technology services and technology consulting and software development and things like that. We found that there was a real big demand for some of the services around that. One being cybersecurity. And so what we did is we looked around and we found a cybersecurity business that we could acquire, and we could then take it into our existing customer base because we had some distribution there, and we could then scale the business beyond. And so that meant that we had a good deal that we could line up on good terms. We could then bolt that into our existing business. We could take that to our existing customer base. And it meant that rather than just offering this service, we could expand what we did. And that, of course, helped to scale up the revenue and, of course, then drive the profit of the business. One final thing I want to touch on, though, is a huge bottleneck, or what is the main bottleneck that happens. And I will tell you that the main bottleneck is always the founder or CEO, because ultimately as the founder or CEO, you have the most power. Your words carry carry a lot of weight, whether you know it or not, and people will act or not act depending on how it is that you're showing up, how it is that you're delegating work, how it is that you're managing and governing that business and that operation, and also what you're even subtly rewarding or celebrating or what values you're promoting and all of that side of things too. And that's again why it's really good to have an outside perspective, because you and I, we have different blind spots. If someone who's not in your business can look at what's going on, can look at how you can actually scale the business and take it to the next level and avoid maybe many years of struggling or going alone. So really there's 3 principles that effectively helped us scale to 30 million within 24 months. The first one, which I would say is 80% of the work, get yourself in a market where you know there's a lot of demand. And you might say, well, there isn't any demand in the market now, it's flat or it's difficult or whatever. Well, the joy of 2025 and beyond is that you can service customers in any geography. You can deliver a service, you can deliver a product remotely, you can access a market of billions within seconds. Then the next thing is then once you've got that, building the right teams, building the right systems, getting playbooks in place. And the final thing is when you've got a business that's running, to really sustain it and take it to the next level. Yes, you can build organically. Yes, you can go customer by customer. But actually instead, if you can think about building through acquisition by thinking of some of those additional services that you can bolt into your business, particularly if you've got distribution, then you'll be well on your way to scale the business to the next level. That's exactly why we have an offer with us at Open Equity. We'll go through your business and we'll understand what some of the scaling pains are, and we'll work out how to unblock, resolve some of those barriers, and also how we can talk about how we can partner to take your business to the next level by investing or acquiring or working with you in a way that we build together. So thanks very much for watching this. Hope you found this useful. Jump on a call by heading below, and I'll see you next time.